Jasmine's skeletons. She's got a bunch of them, most of them in her closet, but some of them have been coming out. And you think, well, if she's got a lot of skeletons in her closet, what does that mean? What does the left media think about this? What do they think of her and what she should be doing right now? We have the answer to that one. Jasmine Crockett should absolutely run for the U.S. Senate. And I 100% agree. I said this over and over again. Jasmine going for it in 2026 here in Texas. We need her. I've got to do shows on this about this stuff. Politics can be boring. I don't know if you know this from time to time. I need people like Jasmine Crockett in my life to say really stupid things to make this job fun. That's what I need. And that's why I love her so. So please, Jasmine, run for Senate in 2026. And people will say, well, why her? Why would we need Jasmine Crockett in this race? It makes no sense at all. And I would say, do you know her resume? Have you done the research? Have you looked at the important things she's bringing to the table? Like when, she reminded all of us that, while we were all seeing Joe Biden fall apart mentally, she had a different view on it all.
Do you have concerns about the president's health and his mental acuity?
No.
None
whatsoever. I had none. Now, granted, I didn't see Joe Biden every single day, but I did have an opportunity to interact with the president. I never had a concern. If there's anyone that I am concerned about their mental acuity, it is the current occupant.
See, super sharp. See how sharp she is? First of all, she completely misses the biggest story in the world that unfolded in front of her eyes every day for multiple years. And then secondarily, she flips it around on guess who? Donald Trump. Because that's an innovative way to go. Nobody's thought of that one before. No one had ever thought to say bad things about Donald Trump, but Jasmine is here to do it for you. She also has some interesting thoughts and opinions about criminality. What does that mean for you as an individual if you happen to commit a criminal act of sorts? Watch.
Understanding what ends up having people become criminally impacted really informs so much of what I do legislatively, right? So when people are like, oh, crime is terrible. And yes, it is, right? Because when somebody goes out and commits a crime, they don't typically, say, well, I'm a D or I'm an R or I'm an I. It's not literally it's about, well, how do you fix it? How do you make communities safer? And I do think that I'm in a unique situation because I was having the conversations with people that were going out and committing crimes. Mm-hmm. And so I understood what was kind of pushing them there.
Right.
And so I do want people to know that just because someone has committed a crime, it doesn't make them a criminal. That is completely different. Being a criminal is more so about your mindset. Committing a crime can come for a lot of different reasons.
I love how blown away that guy is by her point. Committing a crime doesn't make you a criminal? It's like a caveman discovering fire. That was really impressive. And that's the sort of point that she makes. And this is why you're thinking, I don't know, this resume is pretty impressive. How about we know criminals or people who commit crime are not criminals. What are people who, cross the border illegally? What are they doing for the country?
It is a true honor to serve with this champion for healthcare, to serve with this champion for all people, even those that are undocumented, but are truly making this country great.
Yeah. Illegal immigrants are making this country great. I hope you remember that. And remember, if they happen to, now I know we're saying they're illegal. They are undocumented, pardon me. But if you're undocumented, you cross into the country and you maybe commit a crime, doesn't make you a criminal. That is, I think Fiona Apple wrote a song about this and it pretty much explained it. Jasmine Crockett also talked about picking cotton at a church. What could possibly go wrong?
So I had to go around the country and educate people about what immigrants do for this country or the fact that we are a country of immigrants.
Yeah. Right. Ooh, yeah,
the fact is, ain't none of y'all trying to go and farm right now.
Farm. I think is what the word she used.
Okay, so I'm lying. Raise your hands.
See the sass? See how sassy she is? That's why I love her.
You're
Sassy.
not. You're not.
You not.
We done picking cotton.
We done. Oh.
We are. You can't pay us enough to find a plantation.
Let's turn the work that we used to give to slaves over to the new group of slaves, the illegal immigrants that we don't care about, apparently, at all. And we're the ones that are haters, we should note. Conservatives, the ones that say, hey, like maybe we should have laws on the border and maybe people shouldn't just be able to come in here whenever they want to do God knows what and be abused by people who are paying them far too little for the work that they're doing. That's our opinion. Their opinion is they are done picking cotton, so we're just going to sign that work off to the illegals. That should be fine. That's the humanitarian viewpoint in this particular debate. And one thing I will say is 100% certain. Jasmine Crockett should absolutely run for Senate in Texas. Now, there might be a couple of things. A couple of issues with a potentially successful campaign in the Senate for Jasmine Crockett. There's been a scandal here, a scandal there. No big deal. Andrew Kerr has a piece at the Washington Free Beacon inside Jasmine Crockett's secret stock portfolio and failed attempts to become a marijuana magnate. 25 undisclosed stocks in Crockett's portfolio included her ownership of shares of Amazon and Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca and General Motors and Uber and DuPont and ExxonMobil. It's an interesting one from a climate activist. American Airlines, another interesting one from a climate activist. AT&T, Aurora Cannabis, Ford, and corporate cannabis. And then also stocks worldwide, which somehow out of all of those seems to be the shadiest one. What do you guys do? Stocks? Where do you do it? Worldwide? Does that sound like a plausible investment? Stocks worldwide. Okay. Crockett also reported her last Texas financial disclosure owing debts of at least $110,000. None of which she divulged in her first congressional financial disclosure covering the same calendar year, which is kind of strange. It's supposed to be able to keep those. Like when you're disclosing your finances to a couple different places, you want to make sure they're consistent, right? If you don't, someone like, I don't know, Letitia James might come into your life and say, hey, you said your property at Mar-a-Lago costs more on this form than on this form. You're going to prison for the rest of your life. That didn't work out for Letitia, but don't be surprised if people try. It's also unclear if Crockett still owes the debts she reported in her last Texas financial disclosure. She made lots of money since then, so I kind of doubt it. But she reported in that document owing at least $46,580 to both the Texas Federal Credit Union and Wells Fargo at the end of 2021. Crockett also reported to Texas owing between $18,630 and $46,580 to an individual named Ben Babcock. Good old Ben Babcock. That sounds dirty, but it's not. It's just his name, Ben Babcock. She disclosed none of those debts in her congressional financial disclosure covering the 2021 financial year. Let me ask you this. How many individuals do you owe between $18,000 and $46,000 to? Is there a long list? I mean, you might owe that to a mortgage or maybe a car payment. Some real estate investment. I don't know. There's probably lots of things you can owe that sort of money to. To an individual. Okay, well, we kind of have an explanation as to what this was, although it's still pretty strange to me. Crockett's debt to Ben Babcock may have stemmed from a home she appears to have rented while serving in the Texas state legislature. Crockett's Texas financial disclosures show her debt to Ben Babcock steadily increasing from 2019 through 2021. This is just a thought, and I don't know if you've had similar experiences, but this is how it's been consistently through my life. When I've rented apartments and homes from various landlords, what they've expected is me to pay the rent monthly. Apparently not the case with Ben Babcock, who is like totally fine with just this thousands of dollars in debt just building up. You don't need to pay, Jasmine. I am Ben Babcock, and you have got some really cheap or deferred rent. How many times have you gone to an apartment complex and you just go to the leasing office and they're like, we don't expect you to pay for years. Don't worry about it. Well, if that's never happened to you, you've never rented from Ben Babcock, which does not, I mean, he's a very reputable guy, I'm sure. So, and his name is not anything dirty. It just kind of seems like it. Anyway, during her time as the Texas state lawmaker, Crockett introduced several pieces of legislation that could have provided a boon to her cannabis holdings. That's interesting because you're thinking like Ford and Amazon and ExxonMobil and American Airlines and Bob's Cannabis Utopia. Strange. Anyway, shockingly, she, of course, was creating legislation to make all of this stuff legal that would totally benefit these investments. Bills that would have decriminalized drug paraphernalia associated with marijuana use and expanded access to medical marijuana in the state. None of those bills became law in Texas, but again, no one's saying she's good at this job. We should be clear. Yeah, she might be doing something very shady here, but no one's saying she's good at it. But Crockett continued her marijuana advocacy as she took her seat in Congress, co-sponsoring legislation in August to decriminalize marijuana at the national level. Congresswoman's official biography portrays her as a crusading civil rights lawyer who represented Black Lives Matter protesters pro bono. But in the years just before her election to the Texas House in 2020, Crockett's efforts were devoted in part to Black Diamond Investments, a firm which sought unsuccessfully from 2018 to 2020 to, guess what, license to operate marijuana dispensaries in Ohio. Because, look, as a lawyer in Texas, what else would you be doing but trying to legalize pot in Ohio? Very, very normal. Appearing live earlier this year on The Breakfast Club, she brought up and then laughed off internet reports that she is worth $9 million, but said she may be in line for some very lucrative fees from long-running civil rights cases she worked on before entering government. If health ethics rules prevent her from taking her cut, listen to this high-level ethical ability here for Jasmine. If House ethics rules prevent her from taking her cut, Crockett told the Breakfast Club host she will quit Congress, take the money, and then run again. This is why I love her so. This is why she should absolutely run for Senate in Texas, because she's the only person who's honest about this stuff. And you might say, well, she sounds like she's just dumb enough to admit it, and that might be true. It might not be intentional honesty, but it is honesty. She's like, yeah, I want the money more than this job. Of course, it's money. Do you know what money does? Money buys all sorts of things. Now, what it doesn't do is buy a home or buy your lease or rent payments to Ben Babcock. Because Jasmine Crockett's money that she's getting from all this stuff, that money's no good at Ben Babcock's. Okay? That's not where she would spend that money. She would spend that money on fabulous trips. Not to Ben Babcock's house, but to other great places. For example, the Virgin Islands. Squad members are enjoying donor-funded resort weekend in Virgin Islands. Now, I am joking, of course. She would never pay for her own actual retreat to the Virgin Islands. Donors paid for that. She didn't actually pay for that. I wonder if one of the donors was Ben Babcock. We need to find out more about Ben Babcock. I'm very fascinated about this Ben Babcock character who's so generous, because I have a mortgage payment. I would love to just not pay it. It would be awesome. Maybe Ben Babcock could give me a house for free too. And we'll just let the payments go up. And I'll get it back to you eventually, Ben. You know, when marijuana is legalized. Lots of payments. will be easily paid then. Congresswoman Stacey E. Plaskett, who's an individual, despite the fact that I do this job for a living and talk about congressmen all the time, have no idea who she is, but she apparently put this thing together, which was a relax, relate, and release, which now that one does sound dirty. That's not like Ben Babcock, which is just the name. Relax, relate, and release sounds disgusting. But that's the catchphrase for the meeting. While Virgin Islands delegate Stacey Plaskett did not mention race in any advertising for the gathering she hosted, it does not appear that she invited any white women. Look, they were busy. All the whites had things to do that day. In fact, Crockett used the retreat to bemoan the way the United States treats black women. Right, like, you know, black women have all sorts of really tough things going on. For example, trying to find homes to rent that will accept their rent payments. Very difficult. By the way, here she is talking about the horrible treatment of black women in the country.
You may not necessarily see them around me all the time, but when I tell you that I get the text messages and the phone calls to check in, to just make sure that my mental is okay, because if I'm going to say thank you to somebody else who's actually going to be our security that somehow has escaped us, because it really is a dangerous time. Yes. And it is sad to say that specifically in our country, it's never really been an okay time to be a black woman. But I can tell you, being the 55th black woman elected to Congress who decides that she won't back down from anything, it's not necessarily a peaceful time, is how I'll phrase it. And so that's why the Sister Circle matters that much more, because the attacks don't just come.
I get it. We get it. By the way, again, I say she's honest. Have you ever heard a congresswoman admit something like this? I get lots of text messages and phone calls to check in to make sure my mental is okay. That totally happens to Jasmine Crockett. People must be calling her all the time and texting her all the time. Is your mental okay? It certainly doesn't seem like your mental okay is okay. That's 100% Jasmine Crockett territory. Like the home that she rented from Ben Babcock. And this is why, once again, I remind you, Jasmine Crockett absolutely should run for Senate. Please do it. In fact, don't aim so low. Jasmine Crockett for Senate in 2026, and then Jasmine Crockett for President 2028. Let's do this thing. I love it. Ben Babcock loves it. Everybody loves it. Get your merch, by the way, at StuDoesMerch.com. Jasmine Crockett 2028 for Democratic nominee and nothing else. Or you're a racist. Get that, use the code STU10 and save 10% at StuDoesMerch.com.